Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today, we have CryptoPunk's floor price surging past 29 ETH with multiple sales yesterday, 51 in fact. Simon's cat raises $4.25 million for Binance assisted Memecoin. Haven't heard a lot about that. I want to bring that to your attention. And finally, Binance hit with new money laundering class action lawsuit. And we've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs, and some discussion on how a prominent entrepreneur and investor created a Deadlift ETF to compare CEOs who lift heavy weights versus CEOs who do not. Stay tuned for the results. Today, I have Legendary and Sammy in the co-host seats, and we are ready to get into it. But just before we do, just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is very risky, so please do proceed with caution because we do not know anything for sure. So please do exercise your own judgment as you navigate this treacherous market. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Wednesday. It's the 21st of August. How are you doing?
GM, doing quite well. I'm very excited for the discussion point today, the weightlifting ETF. You'll know I'm going to like that one, but I know there's also some other things to go through before we get to that.
Yeah, we're gonna go through the weightlifting ETF for proper CEOs. Then maybe we'll try and call out some founders here. I can see Captain in the audience from Coffee with Captain. I can see Sir Joey, one of the founding members of Chimpers. We need to find out how many of these people are lifting weights. Are they outperforming their competition? And if they're not lifting weights, why not? I can see Funky is a weight lifter. He's pretty excited about that segment, but we're going to get to that a little bit later in the show. Sammy, how are you doing otherwise before we get into it?
I'm good. I noticed that we're missing our main moderator in YouTube at the moment. So T-Rose now out of office. So a bit quieter in there.
Yes, we are. Our main moderator role there's a, what's it called? Say again?
A vacancy.
There's a vacancy for our moderator role while T-Ro is on holiday. The YouTube chat I think it kind of fills up a little bit later in the day, but T-Ro is always there, usually from the beginning. Let's start from the beginning with the price action and the headlines coming from the snapshot, which is pinned up top. In terms of, let's start with the price action itself. We have Bitcoin. Everything's kind of down today. Bitcoin down a couple of percent, 59.3k. ETH also down a couple of percent to 2.587. And Solana also down just under 3% to $141. In terms of the headlines themselves, we have the following. Number one, CryptoPunk's floor price surging back to 29 ETH with multiple sales yesterday and today. I tweeted this earlier today. 51 CryptoPunk sales in the last 24 hours. That's 1,459 ETH, $3.76 million of volume. We're going to want to talk about that and discuss its implications in just a little bit. Number two, Simon's cat raises $4.25 million for Binance assisted Memecoin. Here's some of the details on that. Simon's Cat is a world-famous cat animation series and an immensely popular cat meme. This is from their website, with over 1.6 billion video views on its official YouTube channel and many more views across other channels and social networks. Simon's Cat Memecoin is set to undoubtedly, in their opinion, become the world's most famous and popular cat meme coin. Interestingly, well, there's way more details here. I want to talk about it later because I think the mechanic of launching this in this way is pretty interesting. We've spoken about meme coins before, particularly meme coins that are kind of corporate launched. So we'll discuss that in a little bit too. And then finally, Binance hit with new money laundering class action lawsuit. A new class action lawsuit has been filed against Binance in the US, accusing the company and its founder, CZ, of enabling widespread money laundering and violating US financial regulations. Of course, CZ is currently serving time as part of the deal. And I think he's going to be out in September, which is arguably when the bull market is going to start again. So we're braced for that. A few notable sales. Obviously, you mentioned CryptoPunk's going on a huge run. CryptoPunk Purple Hat was the highest sale at 53.5 ETH, the one we're sharing on video. Remember, we're live on X Live on YouTube as well if you want to watch in. And then a whole host of other ones. We'll probably scroll through as we get into the CryptoPunk news in just a little bit. But Legendary, that is the price action. Those are the headlines. What's going on the NFT market side at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a green day for NFTs at least, and I think Zeneca tweeted about that. It's been a while since we've seen a day where the majors don't do a lot or actually down a bit, but we see a lot of green on the JPEG side. Bored Apes up 7.4% to a 12.8 ETH floor. Pudgy's up 4%, 9.5 ETH floor. Relate is up a similar amount, about to touch a 4 ETH floor. Mutant still Pudgy's, Azuki's, even the V1 CryptoPunks are up 3% today. And they're also my pick of the things that do stand out to me because they're up 62% over the last 7 days and at a 1.95 ETH floor. So very, very green day with some collections actually outperforming the average of the market quite significantly. Again, one of them being the V1 CryptoPunks and another one actually being Moonbirds. They're up 12% to a 0.36 ETH floor.
Interesting. Okay, so very, very green day across the board. Crypto's kind of down, NFT's kind of up. Sam, what are you seeing on the NFT market side?
There's a couple of projects. I think obviously Meebit's being tied to CryptoPunks. They've had a few sales in the past 24 hours, which was quite interesting because you don't really see too much activity there. So that was something that caught my attention. But also on the Mochaverse side, so their tokens just hit all-time highs, and there's been a flurry of NFT sales as well in the past few hours. So they're currently at a team planning event. So they've flown people in, and they posted a picture of that. So I don't know what's being cooked there, and I should know because I'm tied to them. But I think that they're keeping it under wraps. But for the savvy of you, there's a picture, and you can probably click on some of the laptops and try and work that out. So there's some confidential information there.
I'm going to share. That's an interesting call out, actually. You know, we've spoken about how all of these coins, as soon as they come to market, they're down only. The Mocha token, I've just got it up on screen for the people who are watching in, up 14% in the last 24 hours. In the last, how long has it been out for? Maybe a month or so. I'm on the 3-month chart anyway. Yeah, as you say, it's past an all-time high. It went as high as 12 cents kind of on the day of its launch or in the couple of days after. It then dipped quite a lot, to be fair. It looks like it lost maybe 30% or so at different points in time in July, and it's kind of just edged up ever since then. As you say, reaching a new all-time high above 14 cents now. That is a market cap of 164 million and a FDV of 1.2 billion. So do you think, Sam, I mean, as you say, you are kind of an advisor and the Mochaverse, but I think this is reasonable evidence that it's not necessarily the case that these tokens that are low float, high FDV will be down only, or is that more just because, look, the tokenomics are designed in a way where people have to hold and they're incentivized to hold for longer, and those lockups just haven't started yet?
Well, yeah, I think the tokenomics definitely play a part. I mean, if you look at the Mochaverse specifically, I can't talk to a lot of other projects, but there was 2 that I noticed that had a decent return, and they're fairly community focused. Like Notcoin was 100% distributed to the community, and that was another one that I noticed in the past. Well, since all the TGEs this year, I think that one and Mochaverse are the only ones that are up. And they're both very heavily community focused, and I think they had significant airdrops to the community. Now I think Mochaverse, they had like a heavy provision of liquidity to their LP, and the community received a large portion, and they've got ongoing network incentives that people are participating for through the Realm points. So through that Realm network. So I think it's just interesting to see how these projects have approached the tokenomics and how that emissions sort of schedule plays out. And I think the team doesn't receive anything for, I think it's 24 months, or at least it's after the NFT holders are fully vested as well. So yeah, it's completely the opposite of a lot of these high FDV VC coins.
Okay, fair enough. I think it's interesting to see that as an example kind of play out because, well, the sentiment's been so poor about token launches for a long time, and people have basically had to take a time out and reevaluate their whole strategy. Maybe it's a little bit in part because of the summer as well, so people want to take that off and come back when the rest of the market's back in September or later. So yeah,
I think the other one as well. Just I think you touched on it yesterday, but the Tron stuff, like the TRX token is pushing all-time highs, like that's at annual highs. So I think, I mean, there is like a 10 million incentive program that's going on with meme coins at the moment, and Justin Sun has a vested interest in that Sun Pump stuff. But that's something that I'm also watching closely, because I do think that we could see some more upwards trajectory there.
Do you have any more details, Sam? You weren't with us yesterday when we dove into the Tron stuff. Basically, Legendary and I, well, Legendary mainly kind of shared some core metrics about Tron, and it's actually outrageous when you look at the numbers. Like, they're by far and away the second largest, have the second largest amount of TVL on the chain. There's all kinds of other interesting metrics as well. But you mentioned this incentivized something going on at the moment. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so it doesn't cost very much to launch a token on this effectively pump fund platform, but that's on Tron. But if you, yeah, so it's on Tron. If your meme coin reaches the end of the bonding curve, then you receive, as like the CTO or contract dev or whatever, you receive like a reward in TRX for getting that through. Okay. So you have an incentive to get it out of the platform. Effectively, what Pump Fund did with getting their tokens onto Radium. I don't know if they had like an incentive program, like where you literally receive like a golden parachute or handshake or whatever you want to call it to exit the platform, because you effectively have to get it to a certain market cap, and then once it's reached the end of the bonding curve, it kind of then goes on to the broader network. So similar to what Pump Fund did with Radium. So once it reaches that chasm and gets over the chasm, then they've got a similar incentive program there. But I think there's about 10 million there just to incentivize people to do that. But yeah, it's just an interesting one. And to be honest, it probably is a marketing play from Justin Sun just to get some more traction to the TRX token. But I have got my eyes on China, because he has some historical links to China. And obviously if they unban crypto, then he's in a very strong position. And we could see, if you listen to their spaces as well, it's very heavily China community focused. And a lot of the memes that are hitting over there just didn't hit on Solana, because it's just a different culture. And that's just something that I'm kind of digging into a little bit, because I find that super interesting.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. We'll have to, well, we're definitely going to keep paying attention to the Tron stuff, and seeing what comes out of it. Legendary, what about you? Any further reflections on the Tron stuff from yesterday? Sam's talking about the Sun Dog one. I think that's up another 30%, another 40% or something. I'm just going to find it here. Yeah, another 33%. So yesterday, I don't know, is that 16 cents or so? Now it's at almost 24. Any further thoughts on like getting involved, diving in? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I spent my first day yesterday in the tranches after we had that segment. I think tranches sounds really cringe, but I somehow enjoy calling it like that. But on a serious note, I will definitely explore more in that ecosystem. I said it yesterday, one of the largest lending platforms with 5.5 billion TVL, good RWA platform with 200 million TVL. There's so much going on, and I have no clue about that. And I definitely want to change that. And I feel like, especially if there's now a time when there's different incentive programs around not only the Memecoin one that Sammy just mentioned, that's, I think, a very good time to get exploring there and spend some more time on Tron.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Looking forward to the further updates there. Before we move on to the other headlines and getting into everything else, Legendary, what else is kind of catching your attention at the moment?
On the one hand, the tranches, so I can say it again. Yep. On the other hand, we haven't talked about Ton, about the Telegram ecosystem in quite a while. I think a week ago or 6 days ago, they actually launched a venture capital studio, a $40 million fund. I think Gamey was one of the first ones to receive funding from that end. So that is still a very, very active ecosystem. We are getting closer to the first token launches there. There's more and more games coming out, and I feel like I've been a bit disconnected from that over the last month. But once I saw that $40 million Ton Ventures, I think is the name, fund coming out, definitely wanted to do more research, like what projects they are funding, what they are looking for exactly. Is it just the games? Are they trying to build a broader ecosystem there? And I think those two, Ton and Tron, will be my focus, at least for this week, next week, research wise and participation wise.
Interesting stuff. I like it. I want to hear some of the outcomes of that research. I've got something from my side before we hit the interesting discussion point for today. I kind of realized, well, I saw some details of why, you know how we've been reporting on PayPal USD and why that's been going so high. Like why is it that figure is going so high on Solana in particular? Like what's going, well, we've only reported on it as this is a thing that is happening, but I think I've figured out why. There's an article that's been shared. I don't have it with me now. It's on my other computer that I was reading it. And if you go into Drift and you go into Camino, the interest rate or the reward rate that you get for providing PYUSD at the moment is outrageous. It's just so high. And my understanding is, and I need to double check this because I was only reading about this today, but it was worth anyone else having a look too, is that that's just a pure reward rate. It's not to do with how much it's utilized as part of the lending, because it kind of tells you this amount of this interest rate, which you're supposed to earn, is from the lending itself. And this amount, which is separate, is just like an incentivized reward, I think provided by PayPal. I don't know if you have the article to hand. I think you've just pulled it up. That's the one that I was reading earlier. Do you want to go to that?
This guy on DL News?
Yes, this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to go through it since you know the article and I just see it the first time?
Sure. Can you see? Okay, so PayPal's strategy of applying DeFi users with incentives is paying off. The Solana version of the fintech giant's PYUSD stablecoin just overtook its Ethereum counterpart despite Ethereum's 10-month head start. This was more than $377 million worth of PYUSD now resides on Solana compared to 356 on ETH. This was an article about a week ago, by the way. Key to PYUSD success are the lucrative incentives offered to those using dollar-pegged stablecoins in Solana DeFi protocols. Each week, PayPal provides lending protocol, Camino, and trading platform Drift with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of PYUSD to distribute to its users. Back at the time, depositing PYUSD on Drift earns over 16% annually in kind, while Camino offers users around 13%. It's still around those numbers, basically. That's significantly higher than yield on PYUSD on Aave or on any of the other ETH lending protocols. So what do you think about that, Legendary? I think that's pretty damn interesting news, and I'm pretty proud of myself for finding it. What do you think?
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I'm just checking. Oh yeah, there we go. The updated figure on DeFi Llama, total market cap of PYUSD being 890 mil, and thereof 530 on Solana, 360 on ETH. And the article was, as you said, from 8 days ago, and that figure was 380 mil, so another 200 mil added within 8 days. It's definitely growing very, very fast. I'm also wondering, on that note, because we talked about the MiCA regulation in the EU and how that could foster more competition among stablecoins, because as of right now, USDC and Circle are compliant and Tether is not yet. If PYUSD is compliant with the MiCA regulation, and I think I don't want to be the one guy obsessing over EU regulations, but I do think it's relevant. And I also do think that the US will have stablecoin regulations coming at some point, apparently next year. So I'm wondering where PYUSD is on that end.
Or I guess it would be PYEUR. You'd probably get a European stablecoin that would come in from PayPal.
You think they do Euro as well?
Well, I mean, you've got so Circle did the Euro stablecoin recently, which would be tied to the MiCA stuff. But I think PayPal would probably do something similar as well once they've become compliant. But I'm pretty sure they were pretty big.
Dollars, you are required to have 60% of your cash reserves with European banks. So even if you offer a dollar-based stablecoin, there's still things you need to comply with.
Interesting stuff. Well, I think the headline from that part is obviously do your own research, check those protocols, check the interest rate, check that you are comfortable with the risks associated. But I think that's an interesting dynamic, which we definitely didn't report at the time because we didn't understand this like incentive that was going on in the background. We just saw the headline numbers, but I think that incentive explains some of the headline numbers which we saw, which we've been reporting on the last week or two. Let's keep it moving. Those are the things that are catching our attention at the moment. We said today's point for discussion is the Deadlift ETF. Levels IO, which is a great Twitter account, by the way. He's like this genius dev person who just goes around building like, I say small businesses, but he's like a one-man dev, just keeps building these small businesses, which all of them do like 10K a month or whatever. Is super successful. And he shared this idea, which I was just wanted to share for perspective. He said, I made a deadlift ETF with only companies with CEOs that lift weights or do fight sports, not just cardio. It outperforms the S&P 500 by 140% or 2.4x over the last 4 years. Lifting weights equals dollars in his opinion. Well, according to his portfolio opinion as well, he kind of shares a chart as well for the people who are watching in. The blue deadlift ETF is significantly outperforming the green Vanguard 500 index investor. Just underneath, he shares some companies with CEOs confirmed to lift heavy weights. I can go more extensive later, but hard to find data on this, so mostly have to go by Google images. He shared Meta, Amazon, Goldman Sachs, Uber, Microsoft, Apple, BlackRock, and Nvidia. What else is interesting? After he shared this final tweet, which he said, I'm convinced Google would do better if Sundar would lift heavy weights or do five sports. Deadlift ETF is currently outperforming Google. But what was funny is that there was actually a bunch of CEOs who started to say, like, I lift weights, they wanted to be put into the deadlift ETF. So Brian Armstrong actually replied saying, I've been working out 6 days a week for quite a while now. Good recent performance, but entered a rocky market post direct listing. Good thesis to test. So that's the CEO of Coinbase. Just underneath, you have the CEO of Airbnb also replied. It's not coming up now.
It's on my screen.
It is on the screen.
It says, I deadlifted 585 pounds in my early 20s, 6 plates in each side.
There you go. So what was funny is that, yeah, like a bunch of CEOs wanted to be included in this. Genuine question, guys. Yes, we talk about the modern market, we talk about crypto, we talk about the market more generally, we talk about how to make money online. Like, how important is this? Like, do you think if they were to scale this ETF out for the deadlifters out there, do you think it would genuinely be outperforming? Like, what's your thought on the importance of, or the role that exercise plays in people's success?
Okay, three thoughts on. Oh, sorry, Sam, you go first. No, you go.
I think I get the strategy. It's like it's kind of looking at someone's kind of drive. If you've got someone who's driven from all perspectives, they're likely to perform better in their role. Like, I think exercise has proven to be a positive to your mental stimulus. So if you do exercise regularly, then you're more likely than not going to outperform those who don't and become stressed. And it just deals with a lot of things. So I kind of understand why, or like the thesis behind it. It kind of makes sense to me. But yeah, I don't know if it would be something that I would hang my hat on as like a definite thing.
We'll see. We'll see how the data comes back.
Give it 20 year time horizon versus like I don't know how long that's been, but yeah.
Okay. Legendary, what do you think?
Look, I like the thesis per se, but I think the methodology on this one is pretty off. Like, if you look at those companies, it's eight companies, tremendously successful, all in tech. We've seen a tech boom over the last.
What this is saying is, if you lift weights, it's impossible to be unsuccessful.
Yeah, but let me continue on that. They're like evenly distributed and already in a winning sector. So the question would be, if someone actually would take the time to go throughout the entire S&P 500, get a survey going among the CEOs, and make that on a broad basis, and look at that, do basically the data for the last 2 decades, and see if there is a significant difference. Another point that's been made in the comments, it was a very good one, asking, is it correlation? Is it causation? You have tech companies who tend to, often, not always, have younger CEOs who maybe tend to do more time in the gym or do weightlifting more. So even if I don't like the methodology of that, I do agree with the statement. Like, I remember when I was working in finance with the last fund that I worked with, our CEO, very successful guy, does Ironman on a very competitive level. And he was like, he admitted to like kind of be biased when it comes to recruiting to people who either do martial arts, do weightlifting, or do any kind of sport to like more dedicated level, because it shows just the basis level of discipline that those people have, as opposed to someone that doesn't do that. Also, that like is not always true. Like, I don't know, look at a founder like Elon Musk, who's running multiple companies, and I would assume there's not too much time to hit the gym 7 times a week, as opposed to CEOs who quote unquote only are running one company. But I generally like that idea. And I like that argument coming from the perspective, you're taking care about your body, then you will have more power and an increased mental capacity, etc. But the methodology in this deadlift ETF is purely engagement farming.
I also think like the
like
company life cycle. I think the company life cycle as well is important, because if you look at Jeff Bezos in his early years, like he's not like the kind of built person he is today. But arguably, if you'd invested in or put Amazon in at that stage versus now, you would have massively outperformed. So I think also like if this is purely going to be like mature companies that are listed, publicly traded, I completely agree. But if you're going to go with these smaller companies, maybe you need someone who's going to be more dedicated to the company than their personal health for like a year, but with a view to then switching out later on. So I think, just looking at the life cycle as well.
I think that's actually a really reasonable point. And Funky, I know I'm going to come to you in a second. And just so people, we're going to get into the NFT market stuff. We're going to get into the punk stuff. We're going to get into all the headlines as well. But I think that's a really interesting point, which is, I don't know if all of these, like, how now you're able to look at these hugely successful companies, and because of their huge success, they've kind of been able to cut up their lives and schedules in a way that facilitates them to do more stuff in their free time, or not even in their free time, but to like incorporate this stuff. But I bet there was a time when they really, really felt that they didn't need to, and they had to sacrifice something. And one of the things they sacrificed was their health. Not saying that's necessarily the right approach, but I think that kind of the cycle that you're talking about is like, look, at the beginning, you might not be able to, at a little bit later, maybe it's incredibly important for you to be able to do it for a longer period of time. Having said that, Captain in the comments said, kid you not, I work out 6 to 7 days a week, randomly decided to take today off first in a few weeks, and now I feel attacked. Well, you can't be successful today, Captain, because you are basically on holiday. That is the interpretation of what you just said. Funky, welcome to the stage, my man. I know you are a lifter. Is this going to be an aggressively biased take in one direction? What are your thoughts?
It will be an aggressively biased take. I mean, Legendary covered the post hoc ergo propter hoc, right? Like correlation is not causation. So there's a lot to be said about that. But I will say that I think that when you look at a lot of these CEOs, I'm about to be 49. I feel a lot of this is stimulated from a bunch of different reasons. These guys are getting older, right? They know that there is a strong correlation between muscle mass and declining health and so on and so forth. So I feel like that it's, I literally hardly ever leave the house. And the one time I make sure I leave the house is to get to the gym or go for a run or do something physical, because it's great for your brain. I mean, all the research is there. Steve and I were just on the timeline the other day talking about P90X from like 15 years ago. And we were kind of laughing at these Tony Horton quotes that we remember. But I feel like that it's an interesting take. I feel like Bread is missing from this conversation because he's always in beast mode on the TL, right?
Yeah.
You see him like squatting like 400 plus pounds and stuff. But I feel that there's a lot to be said about, to what Legendary was saying earlier with his previous boss, the discipline that it takes to show up consistently and do those things really says a lot about you as a person. And I feel like that's, we look to CEOs as leaders, as people who are very public facing. And so, there's just the signaling there, right? When you see a dude who's jacked versus somebody who's not, like, it's just the way that we're wired. We are going to respect the jack dude far more than the skinny dweeb, right? I mean, it's just built into us as human beings. So I think there's a lot to be said about these CEOs who are showing, and then there's just, we live in an age where there's so much information about this stuff. You see, you can't turn on YouTube without seeing some clip of Huberman talking about stuff, or you name it, right? There's just so much information out there, and it's just leading toward these kinds of conclusions where people should be taking their health seriously. For me personally, like I feel like your body is the vehicle for your consciousness. Whatever, if you have religious beliefs or not, like this is the one chance you get. You better go for broke your entire life.
Like it. Inspirational message there, Funk. Legendary, final point on this.
Yeah, on the point that Sammy made before on the life cycle of a company, favorite image is, I'm gonna share this on screen. Jeff Bezos, early in the company when they were still only selling books on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, the Jack Bezos that we know from nowadays.
Wow. Okay, so that is pretty stark difference, as you say, and I think it's kind of obvious that I think deep down it's something that everyone would like to aspire to, because it seems to be the case that once these people get their companies in a particular position, then they think, well, now I can sort this out. I didn't get a chance. Maybe I sacrificed it too much and I had to do other stuff for a period of time. But now that I'm in a successful position professionally, I better sort this other stuff out, because it's incredibly important for me to be able to do this for my longevity. So I like it. I like thinking about it from the longevity perspective, rather than thinking, right, I need to lift weights, like whatever at any point in time. But just to be able to do it over a long period of time, I like thinking about it from that perspective. Right, we've got a lot of headlines to get into. We wanted to touch on that from a business/personal perspective, but on the NFT market side, CryptoPunks are really back. As we noted already, CryptoPunks floor price surged back to 29 ETH with 51 sales in the past 24 hours, or that's what it was when I literally counted all of them in the morning today. I think there was $3.7 million worth of volume in order to move the floor up from around 23 ETH to 29. Very significant move on the CryptoPunk side. Legendary, what are your thoughts on this move? What's the significance of it? Why is it happening now?
Yeah, it's an interesting move. Is it because we're a bit tired of the Memecoin trading and this money just flowing back into JPEGs? I personally do not think that this is new money coming in. It's also a bottom around 20 ETH that many prominent traders have kind of put on the timeline. So it might be a psychological barrier that we've seen there. I think Beanie was calling for a 15 to 20 ETH bottom on punks months ago, 4 or 5 months ago. Cyrus posted in a very similar fashion. And then you obviously have some of the wealthiest holders when it comes to punks, and who also have a lot of dedication and a very high belief in that community and ecosystem, and definitely have the funds to move the floor back up. Because as you said, if you look at the 4 million that went in, it moved the price significantly, but percentage wise it's not an absurdly high gain, and those 4 mil would have pumped another collection way higher. So it does take a lot of capital to move the punks, is the point. The question to me is, are the punks the bellwether for the other collections? Will this like cause a run on other JPEGs? It seems that at least today it's been a green day for the other collections that we discussed at the beginning of the show as well. But I am not sure if this is yet a momentum reversal for NFTs, because I feel like we had days like these over the last 2 years quite often. And I don't know who was it, Cyrus, was it CBB? I don't know who put out that post saying that we've seen this over the last 2 years. JPEGs crush 50%, then pump 20% on one day, on a couple days, and everyone's like, oh, NFT season is back, and then the same pattern repeats and repeats and repeats.
Yeah, I'm gonna find that tweet. That was a really important one. It's kind of the one that I was talking about when it comes to meme coins, how they just keep making lower highs, and then the lows just keep getting a little bit lower, and they keep going making a lower high, and then keeps going a little bit lower every single time. A couple of comments on the sales from the comments, which I thought were helpful. Ben is awesome. Ben Milch says 2 of the recent CryptoPunk sales were by Matt Kalish. Matt Kalish, as you might know, is the co-founder of DraftKings. A couple of other points. In the stock market, this is Savage Craig. In the stock market, quality usually runs first and the rally finishes with the trash rising. Punks popping like this bodes well. One pushback on your point, Legendary, that I would give before we hear from Sammy is I feel like the other stuff's been doing quite well recently. If anything, it was Bored Apes last week or a few days ago that kind of started to show some real strength, some real buyers coming in there. And I feel like in other parts of the market, there was actually some strength before Punks this time. I know it's a green day and I accept that, but I think Bored Apes went from like 9 to 12 before this happened. So that would be my one reflection. Do you want to come back on that first, Legendary, before we hear from Sammy?
Yeah, no, that's a very fair point. Yeah.
Okay. Sam, what are you thinking here? What does this mean for the NFT market? Are there other things that will move as a consequence?
I don't think, well, things are connected to a certain extent, but I think we're at the stage now where NFTs popped off in 2021. It's now 2024. Like each NFT collection has its own value proposition. I think punks have always been known as like that collectible, maybe a pass into like an exclusive group of people that have a certain mindset. And I think that value proposition is very different from, say, I don't know, Mockaverse, which I think is connected to like the Realm network. It's kind of a boost in your earning power. So it has a utility. And I think for me, like, I think those things are separate. I don't think like a run on punks would necessarily mean like a run on like Mockaverse NFTs as an example. But it potentially would mean that you kind of look at other collectible pieces that might be NFTs, like artwork or other things like that, would have a similar value proposition. So you kind of segment the NFT market into those like pillars and then start to see if those like trends and things and patterns start to make sense. But I think also if you look at the price action of punks, they're over 100K now. For a collectible, you're then starting to put them into the realms of benchmarking against, I don't know, other collectibles that aren't NFTs. Like, what would you rather hold, like a first edition shiny Charizard, or would you rather hold a CryptoPunk? Like, it just depends on like what you prefer. And I think once you start paying prices for those, like over 100 grand for an NFT, you then start to have like that consideration where, okay, well, that's a lot of money. Would I rather hold ETH? Would I rather hold the CryptoPunk, or would I rather put that into Pokemon cards? Like, I think collectibles become a very unique value proposition. And just like, I can't remember, I think Arcade had one of the comparisons on their website about the collectibles market. And I want to say it was like 30 odd billion was like the market cap for collectibles, which is pretty significant. And if that's the case, CryptoPunks is just a fraction of that. So yeah, I think there's plenty of room to run, but I do think that you can't necessarily compare CryptoPunks as an NFT to the wider NFT market, because I think they're quite unique.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely unique. I heard a clip from Luca yesterday. I don't think it was from yesterday, but that's when I heard it. Expressing a lot of surprise that CryptoPunks are where they are. Like, he thinks they should be way, way higher, sees it as a leverage bet on ETH, and just thinks they should be way, way higher as the kind of the most significant 10K collection that kind of kicked off really everything. So I think, yeah, they're a clear distinction, as you kind of mentioned. Two things I wanted to show people on the screen. I'm going to share my screen so you can get a sense of this. Remember, we're live on X and live on YouTube video as well. These are the top 50 sales from the last 24 hours. And as you can see, actually, it's probably a bit small, so I'm going to try and zoom in. Oops, I'm going to try and zoom in just a little bit to see if you can get a bit closer to it. There we go. As you can see, we have CryptoPunks, all the top 50 sales. Oh, sorry. All the top 47 sales were CryptoPunks yesterday in the last 24 hours, apart from one. Sammy, you mentioned the art category. There was one Fidenza by Tyler Hobbs selling for 28.95 ETH. And another Bored Ape, or a couple of Bored Apes towards the end at 16 ETH and 15 ETH. Now, for the people who don't kind of look at these sites all the time, it's not entirely uncommon for the site to be in the top 50 or the top 10 to be completely dominated by punks. It's usually the case that they're the ones that are the most expensive. But to see that amount of volume is pretty significant. So that would be my final reflection there. Legendary, any final thoughts on what it means for the market more generally?
Yeah, let's see what it means. I seen Kicks being a bit more critical about that, saying, the old let's sell a bunch of NFTs back and forth on the zero fee marketplace. This week's attempt at forcing a NFTs back PFP rally has been one of the most forced and fake looking like things in a while. That or BlackRock is indeed launching a Punks ETF, but we'd be at 60 ETH already then because the insider front running would be unstoppable. Received a fair bit of pushback on that in the comments, including Raheem, who said, look at the transaction data. There's been a bunch of new buyers, including Cyrus. So I think it's...
Well, Cyrus traded out of it straight away. So Cyrus bought and sold.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair too. So I think it's a bit early to say if this will have a lasting impact on the market.
Final point on this, which I think is important. Well, one clarification on what Sam said. Sam, you mentioned them being at 100K. They're actually about a 75K floor now, I think. But it seems to be the case that there's a dollar value attached to punks. Like, I know people want to treat them as if it's purely ETH based, but I heard a lot of people when they spoke about like where's the bottom for it. Yes, some people mentioned ETH, but I feel like people had, and I was thinking myself, around the 50K region as like maybe that'll be the place. And I would have thought that irrespective of what the value of ETH would be at the time. So any final reflection, Legendary, on like ETH, like how we're valuing these things? I know people would love to just say 1 ETH equals 1 ETH and that's how it is. I think that people's behavior is suggesting that the dollar value matters very, very much. But what are you thinking there?
Yeah, I'd definitely be the person to say 1 ETH is 1 ETH, but I know that this is not the reality, especially not for the more expensive collections where people certainly take a look at the dollar value. I think if you have a 0.1 ETH or 0.2 ETH collection, nobody gives a fuck if ETH is a 2.5 or a 3K. But with the more expensive ones, obviously that makes a significant difference.
But I also think that where we are in the cycle, like if we're in a bull market, I was pricing stuff in ETH. Like I didn't really care about the USD value in 2021, just because you could stack ETH. But I think now, because you're kind of a little bit more conscious about it, like preserving that capital, I don't think we've necessarily seen that blow off top. And maybe if Kobe's thesis plays out, that could be super interesting because you might see punks run to a significantly higher floor once again, because people don't necessarily focus on that USD amount.
Okay. Like it, important to have that conversation because I think it's a re-emerging narrative each time, and people who are newer to the space might try to decide like, well, if I buy this for this amount in ETH, is it going to go up in ETH or is it not? So that is a conversation we'll keep coming back to as the data changes. Let's hit the Web3 roundup to get you up to with everything else that's been happening in the space in the last 24 hours. And then we've got 2 more headlines to touch on before we close out in about 12 minutes. Number 1, State Street with $4.4 trillion in assets under management forms a strategic partnership with Taurus, a Swiss crypto custody platform. That's interesting to note. Number 2, Korn announces $6.7 million seed round to build the super yield network rooted in digital gold. This appears to be the first Ethereum L2 that uses Bitcoin as the gas token. I'm not sure about that. I want to research that a little bit more. Next, Blind Compute Protocol Nillion announces Arbitrum partnership to extend private and scalable DeFi. I'm quite intrigued by this. I am quite intrigued by anything privacy related attempts to try to preserve some privacy on the blockchain. And I believe Nillion is like one of the teams that are at the forefront of that. Packmoon's team, new token Army, is live. It's trading around an $8 million FDV. Cyberkongs announced partnership with Adidas for limited collection of digital collectibles. That's pretty impressive for Cyberkongs to get Adidas on board with them. Snowfro on the art side is going to mint the final Chromie Squiggle directly to the Lacma wallet. That would be a pretty important moment for the Chromie Squiggle collection. And then finally, Yuga Labs to host 5K charity poker game with Gordon Goner in attendance. Legendary. We have 10 minutes left. We've got a couple of headlines left to cover. The first one I want to get into is this Simon the Cat meme coin. Now, to be perfectly transparent, I do not own this coin. I did not buy the pre-sale, but I didn't see anyone talk about it at all. And I thought it was pretty interesting. The way that it was framed, the way that it was being sold. Like there's some very big players that are involved. I didn't see anyone talk about it. And I thought it was worth putting it as a headline and discussing it. So This is Simon's cat to launch on the TokenFi launchpad. This pre-sale was done yesterday. It raised $4.25 million. The progress is 100% complete. In terms of just like some background information, Simon's Cat is a world-famous cat animation series and an immensely popular cat meme with over 1.6 billion video views on its official YouTube channel and many more views across other channels and social networks. Some other headline views, 30 million to 60 million views each on several of the most popular Simon's Cats videos on YouTube and Facebook. 9.9 million Facebook fans, 6.3 million YouTube subscribers, 5.4 million Instagram followers, 3.5 million TikTok fans, 29 million likes on TikTok, 20 million game downloads on Apple Store and Google Play. You can see how these numbers are being presented in order to, present the significance of this cat, this IP. To be fair, like I'd never heard of this cat. I want to know if you guys had beforehand, but look, can't argue with those numbers, I guess. And then the way that they sell it is they say, well, look, the other cat coins at the moment are PopCat, 590 million market cap, Mog, 510 million market cap, Mew, 500 million market cap. Trying to, present this cat as the very popular, a very popular coin, which does not exist yet on chain, versus these coins that do exist on chain and say, oh, look how valuable it could be versus these things which have just come out of nowhere. In terms of the launch details, which I think is also important, it was a pre-sale market cap of 25 million, a token launch market cap of 25 million. There's pre-sale investors. There's a proportion that goes to the Flocky token holders, an airdrop. Then there's a Simon's Cat Foundation. There's the market makers. There's community growth amount, and there's liquidity providers. Legendary, what did you think of this? Like, there's also I've lost the details here, but this is done by, it's Binance assisted. There is also, here we go, partners, BNB, DWF Labs. So there's like some pretty prominent people involved in this ICO style launch. What do you think about this type of launch? First, in terms of its actual content, when it comes to this being this cat coin, and then second, like the kind of corporate nature of it.
Yeah, I can't help like the way this thing is worded, and you read through the stats, and they even had one point in the listicle saying we have a Wikipedia page and others do not. It feels a bit like trying to engineer a meme coin, and like the language of that, also going, hey, PopCat has 590 mil, Mog 510, Mew 500 mil market cap, and we have so much more reach, clearly insinuating that their market cap should be higher than that, but then coming with this whole set of tokenomics and the way it is structured feels like some VCs, some more professional traders want to have their hands in the meme coin game, not trying to engineer this launch. And I'm honestly curious to see if it works or not. Like, similar to you, I haven't seen it too prominently on the timeline. I'm probably also not necessarily the right person to ask, because I do not spend that much time in the meme coin trenches. But I don't know. It's interesting to see if this will work out or not, but I'm probably more on the skeptical side.
Yeah, I think, okay, that's interesting to hear. Sam, want to hear your thoughts. Just going to share this additional bit that they shared in the read and to get your thoughts on it. It says, Simon's Cat isn't your average meme coin. It is a massive IP and mainstream brand. Certain IP-related payments had to be made prior to the token launch. The reason why an early bootstrapping round was held at much similar terms as the public pre-sale. As a result, you can be assured that the token is fully backed and linked with the official Simon Cat's IP. In addition, official Simon Cat's channels with tens of millions of followers will support the token. This gives the Simon Cat meme coin a massive advantage that no other meme coin currently has. Do you think that works? Do you think it works that you've got all of this traditional distribution, right, across all of these various channels? Do you think that makes a difference when it comes to having a liquid crypto token?
Well, I think it's a slightly different play on what the token could be used for. And I think, to me, this strikes me as a massive marketing push. Like, similar to you, like I've not heard of Simon's Cat, but I do recognize that that cat. So like I just didn't put two and two together that is Simon's cat. And I think if that's their intention, like bring attention to Simon's cat IP and brand, and then it depends on what they intend to use that attention for. Like maybe there'll be like something else that they intend to launch. So I like from a corporate standpoint, I'm probably a little bit more skeptical about just being a token. I think there's more to it. I think they would have had a strategy behind it. I think they would have been like, okay, well, Mother from like Iggy Azalea is getting a lot of attention. Why don't we do something similar, but actually use that attention for a specific purpose? So yeah, who the hell is Simon? Like, you've seen the cat, but where's the owner?
Maybe Simon is the owner. I'm assuming Simon's the owner. So look, it's interesting. I think I lean towards the same thing that you guys have said. It feels like a forced narrative, but in the end, we've just got to see. One of the things I was thinking maybe counter to that is the reason why no one's spoken about it. It could be because everyone thinks it's rubbish and shouldn't be spoken about. That could be true. Or alternatively, everyone wants to get in and not let anyone else get in. So it can really go either way. I did report on it in the snapshot yesterday or the day before. So if people wanted to get in, I guess they could have. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We've only got 4 minutes left, and I want to just touch on the final headline to get people up to speed with some other stuff, leaving us with a question on CZ. Binance is hit with fresh class action lawsuit over money laundering allegations. The lawsuit alleges that Binance's negligent compliance practices allowed backed actors to use the platform to launder stolen crypto. This is an article from today. I don't really know like how people can continue to bring different things. I thought his stuff was kind of settled. And usually when maybe I don't know how it works in the States, to be honest, but usually if you're settling with one particular party, you kind of agree that there will be nothing else brought against you. Maybe that's not possible if there's going to be lots of different people in lots of different states who are going to continue to bring things against them. But if you are the person that agrees to pay to give yourself up, and remember, he paid like a colossal fine. I'm just looking at the article here. As part of the settlement, Binance agreed to pay over $4 billion in penalties, and Zhao stepped down as CEO. Additionally, he was fined $50 million personally for his role in the company's violations. And you would have thought that once you've made that payment, that people would stop coming after you. Maybe not. I don't know. My bigger question here, guys, is I think he's due to come out of his sentence next month. I think I need to double check that. What are your thoughts on him coming out? I think he's kind of left crypto and stuff, but do you think there will be some type of crypto consequence or crypto reaction to him coming out?
Probably meme coins. Probably people will look at what he's posting, what he's saying. Will there be activity on X? Will there be a podcast or whatever? And trying to make memes around that.
I'd probably take that one step further and say front run the crowd and get on meme coins on Binance Smart Chain.
Yeah,
I think a resurgence from whenever it was 2020 when that stuff like popped off massively.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think there will definitely be something. There will definitely be something. But my understanding was he's kind of building an education company now, or that's what he wants to do, and that's what he was going to be pouring his kind of resources and time and effort into. So we'll keep an eye out for you guys as always. Hope you enjoyed the show. Good variety of stuff today. We obviously hit all of the headlines, but I thought our attention, or the section where we talked about what's catching our attention, had some interesting info today. If you weren't around for it, do head back. You can check us out on Twitter Spaces. As always, you can watch the recording. We're also on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Hope you had a wonderful day. Thank you to my co-host Legendary and Sammy, and our contributors up top, Funky. Have a good day. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. See you later. Bye-bye.